deep green Mustang roars through San Francisco. No flashy stripes, no shine, just purpose. Steve McQueen's Bullitt didn't need special effects. It needed heart grit and one of the most iconic cars in film history. But what if I told you, the car you've seen leaping through those hills wasn't one car at all? For decades, fans believed one indestructible Mustang did it all, every crash, every jump. In truth, there were two nearly identical machines, twins with back-to-back serial numbers each built for a different destiny. One to shine, one to suffer. Together, they created the illusion of a single legend, the car that would redefine what cool looked like on screen. 20, two cars, one role. Warner Brothers didn't rely on one Mustang for Bullitt. They bought two 1968 GT Fastbacks, almost identical VIN numbers, 8R02S125558 and 8R02S12559, consecutive like brothers born minutes apart. Both came from the same Ford dealership in San Francisco. Both painted Highland Green, both ready to make history. Even the film crew sometimes mixed them up. But each had a mission, one to live forever in close-ups, the other to take the punishment no car should survive. Audiences never noticed. Every burnout, every slide, every brutal landing was carefully edited, so the two became one unstoppable force. It's one of Hollywood's cleverest illusions and one of its most enduring legends. Dying Teal, hero-versus-stunt split. Here's how the legend was built. Car number 559 became the hero car, the pristine Mustang you see in close-ups, when McQueen leans against it with that effortless cool, or drives through the city with calm precision. Every glossy frame, every quiet moment, where the car wasn't flying through the air, that was 559. Its twin 558 was the stunt car, the one that took every hit, every hard landing down San Francisco's brutal hills. It was stripped of unnecessary parts, reinforced and pushed to its absolute limits. No CGI, no trick camera work, just real metal slamming against real pavement. During filming, the crew constantly rotated them while 558 was in the shop getting patched up. 559 would take its turn on camera for dialogue scenes. It was efficient, ingenious, and essential. By the time the chase was over, 558 was battered beyond recognition, bent frames cracked, weld suspension nearly destroyed. But in those scars lived the most authentic car chase ever filmed, one that still leaves audiences breathless half a century later. 18. Highland Green Stealth. The Mustang's look was never meant to scream movie star. In fact, it was designed to disappear. The production team deliberately chose Highland Green, a dark metallic shade that most people in 1968 ignored. Ford sold barely 5% of their Mustangs in that color, too muted, too subtle for the muscle car crowd. But that was exactly why they picked it. Frank Bullitt wasn't supposed to drive something flashy. He was a detective who blended into San Francisco's chaos. His car needed to feel real, like something a working man could afford. So they stripped it down. No GT badges, no shiny trim, no extra chrome. Just clean lines, quiet power, and a hint of menace. It looked like any Mustang on the street, until it moved. Once those wheels hit the hills, the Highland Green shimmered in the sun, giving the car a dangerous cinematic glow that no one expected. And when Bullitt hit theaters, that once unwanted color exploded in demand. Ford couldn't make enough of it, a paint shade that went from overlooked to legendary, all because it looked perfect in motion. 17. Torq Thrust wheel swap. The wheels spinning through Bullitt's chase weren't factory originals. They were American Racing Torq Thrust D wheels swapped in for one reason: authenticity. The stock GT rims looked too polished, too clean cut. This car needed attitude, something that said it had lived a little, maybe broken a few rules. So the crew replaced the factory wheels with 5-spoke Torq Thrusts chrome, with a machined face, the kind you'd find on a true street racer in the late 60s. They gave the Mustang a raw, muscular stance that matched McQueen's no-nonsense character. But there was more than style behind that decision. These wheels were stronger, built to handle punishment. When you're launching a 400-pound car over the steepest streets in San Francisco, you can't risk a cracked rim ending a day of filming. Torq Thrusts could take the impact, and they did over and over again. The design became so iconic that American racing still sells them today unchanged since 1968. Every set echoes back to that green Mustang, to the car that flew and somehow survived through cinema's most unforgettable chase. 9th, Max Balchowsky upgrades. When Warner Brothers needed someone to make the Bullitt Mustangs capable of doing the impossible, they turned to Max Balchowsky, a race car builder who'd spent years making American V8s hum louder than Ferraris. Balchowsky didn't just tune cars, he engineered chaos to behave. The moment the Mustangs rolled into his garage, he stripped them down like a surgeon preparing for open-heart work. The front shock towers were reinforced with thick steel plating to survive those violent landings. Heavy-duty racing springs replaced the stock ones, Coney adjustable shocks were added for precision, and thicker sway bars kept the car steady when it should have been airborne. Then came the fine-tuning header's freer exhaust flow, recalibrated timing, little adjustments that made the car roar harder, but also last longer under brutal repetition. Each setup had to be perfect, because the chase was filmed over multiple days and from every imaginable angle. The car had to perform the same insane stunts again and again. No excuses, no breakdowns. Balchowsky's genius was invisible. He made the Mustangs faster, stronger, and tougher, but never flashy. They still looked like ordinary cars. That was the magic. Race car performance hidden behind detective modesty. And that's why, when you watch Bullitt, you never question it. You believe it. 15. Louder, meaner V8. The soul of Bullitt wasn't in the camera, or even in McQueen's cool. It was in that sound. That deep growling roar that shakes your chest even through an old television speaker. It wasn't artificial. There were no dubbed effects, no studio tricks. What you heard on screen was the real 390 cubic inch Ford V8 unleashed. Balchowsky and his team made sure of it. They tore off the stock manifolds and replaced them with custom-built exhaust headers. The mufflers practically hollow straight through pipes that barely soften the engine's fury. Every time McQueen floored the pedal, the car answered like a wild animal. The engines were tuned for instant throttle response, no hesitation, no lag. They adjusted carb jets, bumped the idle, advanced the timing. The cars had to survive dozens of takes, and yet they couldn't afford to stall or stumble, even once during a chase. They needed pure immediate violence at every squeeze of the throttle. The result? An exhaust note so raw and perfect that the sound engineers actually had to tone it down in some dialogue scenes. It was drowning out the actors. But in the chase, they let it roar unfiltered. That sound, that pure mechanical growl, became cinema's heartbeat. And even now, over 50 years later, Mustang owners still chase it, trying to capture that same thunder McQueen once commanded through San Francisco streets. 14. Camera mounts underbody. To capture the most visceral car chase ever filmed, the crew had to invent new ways to make audiences feel the speed. So they did something no one in 1968 had ever dared to do. They welded heavy steel camera mounts directly into the body of the Mustang. Underneath the car, rectangular tubes were fixed across the rocker panel strong enough to hold 30-pound film cameras steady, even while the car bounced, drifted, and went airborne. These cameras sat just inches above the pavement, letting viewers see every blur of asphalt and every spark of metal scraping the ground. It gave the audience the sense that they were inside the chase, not watching it. The system had to survive enormous G-forces. From the jumps, cameras couldn't shake or fall not once. Some were attached to the front bumper, others to the rear deck, even inside the engine bay, so you could feel every gear shift, every vibration, every breath of the car. If one mount failed, a camera worth thousands could have been destroyed, but they never did. These welded rigs permanently altered both Mustangs, but they also gave birth to a filmmaking revolution. For the first time, a movie didn't just show speed, it immersed you in it. The footage they captured redefined what a chase could be. And every modern action film owes a debt to those hidden steel frames under McQueen's car. 13. Trunk holes for cables. By the time filming wrapped, the Mustangs didn't just look beaten, they were transformed into rolling film studios. Open the trunk, and you'd see chaos-thick electrical cables, battery packs, and control wires running everywhere. To make it work, the crew drilled multiple holes through the trunk floor and body panels. Not small openings, but gaping circles 2 inches wide just to route the heavy power lines that fed cameras and lights. Those cars weren't just chasing. They were carrying the very equipment that made the chase possible. Massive 12-volt batteries were strapped into the trunk to power the cameras. Control boxes and monitors sat in the back seat, operated by technicians during live shots. It was all wired together with industrial-strength cabling that would snake under the seats through the doors up to the camera mounts welded onto the frame. Rain became a nightmare. Whenever it poured, water gushed straight into the trunk through those drilled holes, soaking everything inside. The crew had to throw tarps over the cars between takes just to keep them from shorting out. But no one cared about the damage, only about getting the shot. After production, those same holes made the cars nearly useless for normal driving. But in those few weeks of filming, they turned a humble Mustang into something extraordinary. A machine that didn't just star in the movie, it was the movie. 12. Backup lights deleted. Sometimes the smallest details make the biggest difference. The Bullitt crew understood that perfectly. They wanted the Mustang to look raw-stripped and dangerous like a detective's personal car, not something built for showrooms. So they started removing everything that screamed factory polish. First to go the reverse lights. Those little chrome circles at the back were taken out completely, leaving a clean, muscular rear end that looked tougher and meaner on camera. Then they removed the GT badges and even peeled off the Mustang horse emblems in certain shots. Every unnecessary sparkle of chrome was gone. The logic was clever. The fewer identifying details the car had, the easier it was to hide that 2 identical Mustangs were swapping scenes throughout the film. Continuity became seamless. Audiences never noticed when one car replaced the other, and that bare, unpolished look became its own kind of beauty. This wasn't a pampered showpiece. It was a cop's car, dented, imperfect, but brutally capable. The absence of shine made it real believable. Even without the badges, it earned its identity through motion and sound. That's why the Bullitt Mustang didn't need chrome or stripes to be iconic. Its silence said more than any emblem could. 11. Jaciezam Centinovi played legend. 3 letters, 3 numbers. JJZ109. It's one of the most recognizable license plates in film history, as iconic as the car itself. That yellow on black California plate appeared in almost every chase shot, burned into the memory of anyone who's ever seen Bullitt. But here's the secret. It wasn't even a real plate. The production couldn't risk showing an actual registered number, so they had the prop department create one from scratch. Something that looked authentic, but didn't belong to anyone. Ironically, it looked so real that fans later tried to register JJZ109 for themselves. So many, in fact, that the California DMV had to ban the combination entirely to stop the flood of copies. Over the decades, replicas of the plate became collectors' treasures. You'll see them at every movie car show, bolted to replicas' tributes, even modern Mustangs built to honor McQueen's machine. The plate became a password, a wink shared by those who knew what that code meant. One of the original screen-use plates was later sold at auction for over $30,000. Just a thin piece of metal with some paint, but it carried 50 years of cinematic history. Because when people see JJZ109, they don't just see numbers. They see the roar of the V8, the dust of San Francisco, and Steve McQueen chasing immortality one gear shift at a time. 10. Bud Ekins took the jumps. Everyone remembers Steve McQueen behind the wheel, the squint, the calm, that effortless cool. But when the Mustang launched off San Francisco's hills and hung in the air like a missile, that wasn't McQueen. That was Bud Ekins, the man who made the impossible look easy. Ekins wasn't just any stunt driver, he was the stunt legend. The same man who jumped the barbed wire fence in The Great Escape. McQueen trusted him completely, because Ekins could make a car or a motorcycle defy gravity with surgical precision. For Bullitt, he was given the Mustang 558, the stunt car, and told to push it beyond reason. He'd build up speed, hit the crest of Taylor Street at just the right angle, and send 400 pounds of Detroit muscle flying through the air. The landings were brutal. Even with Max Balchowsky's reinforcements, every jump bent something. Ekins later admitted that the punishment to his back was so intense he could barely walk after some takes. But he kept going. Shot after shot. Jump after jump. The filmmakers needed multiple angles and Ekins delivered every single time. McQueen may have been the star, but Bud Ekins was the ghost behind the legend, the man who risked everything to make it look effortless. Without him, that chase wouldn't just be less thrilling. It might never have been remembered at all. 9. Daily driver aftermath. You'd think that after Bullitt wrapped the Mustang would have gone straight to a museum, preserved behind glass like a crown jewel of cinema history. But reality had other plans. When the cameras stopped rolling, Warner Brothers sold the hero car, the cleaner, less damaged Mustang, to one of their employees. And what did he do with it? He drove it, every day, to work to the grocery store through rain and traffic, like it was any other car. A few years later, the car was sold again, this time to a man named Robert Kiernan in New Jersey. For the Kiernan family, it wasn't a collector's item. It was just the family car, the one they took on road trips, used for errands, and parked in the driveway, without a second thought. But time and clutch wear caught up. In 1980, when the transmission started failing, they parked it in their garage. And there it sat for nearly 4 decades. Dust gathered, boxes piled on top. Meanwhile, the world wondered what happened to McQueen's Mustang, assuming it was lost or destroyed. It wasn't. It was quietly resting in a suburban garage in Tennessee, unseen but unforgotten, a legend hiding in plain sight. When the family finally revealed it to the public in 2018, it was like a time capsule had been opened. 40 years of mystery solved with a single turn of a garage door. 8. McQueen tried to buy it. Steve McQueen wasn't just proud of that Mustang, he was haunted by it. Years after filming Bullitt, he couldn't get the car out of his head. He'd driven hundreds of machines in his life: race cars, classics, exotics. But that Highland Green Fastback was different. It was part of his identity. So in 1977, McQueen tracked down the car's new owner, Robert Kiernan, and sent him a personal letter. In it, he politely asked to buy the car back. He didn't make some extravagant Hollywood offer, he just said he'd like to have it back, and was willing to pay a fair price or even work out a trade. But Kiernan said no. He wasn't trying to be difficult. The Mustang had become his family's memory now. He'd driven it to work, his wife had driven it to school, and it had become a part of their story. Not even Steve McQueen could change that. McQueen tried again through intermediaries, but the answer stayed the same. And in a strange poetic twist, the man who defined cool could get any car in the world, except the one that made him a legend. McQueen passed away in 1980, never owning that car again. The rejection letter remains part of the Mustang's history, proof that even icons can't always reclaim the past. 7. Long-lost stunt shell. While the hero car lived quietly in that Tennessee garage, its twin, the battered stunt Mustang known as 558, seemed to vanish completely. After the dust settled from Bullitt, everyone assumed it had been scrapped. The car had endured too much punishment, endless jumps, cracked welds, broken suspension. It was by every account beyond saving. For decades, car hunters searched junkyards, barns, and garages across America, hoping to find a trace of it. But there was nothing. No paper trail, no whispers, no luck. It was as if the stunt car had disappeared into legend, just another Hollywood casualty. Until 2017. Nearly 50 years later, a restoration shop in Baja, Mexico stumbled upon a beat-up Mustang coated in layers of white paint. The car looked rough, wrong color, wrong parts, wrong everything. But something about the bones felt familiar. When they checked the VIN number, their jaws dropped. 8R02S12558, the original stunt car. The very same Mustang that had flown through San Francisco for real, now sitting rusted and forgotten in a Mexican garage. No one knows exactly how it got there. Some say it was sold cheap, others that it was quietly shipped across the border decades earlier. But after half a century, the car that took all the abuse finally resurfaced. It's now being restored piece by piece, not to erase the scars, but to honor them. Because those dents and cracks aren't flaws. They're proof of survival. 6. Historic registry status. In 2020, something extraordinary happened. Something no movie car had ever achieved before. The Bullitt Mustang was officially added to the U.S. National Historic Vehicle Register, making it one of only 21 vehicles in American history to receive that honor. This isn't some token award or pop culture nod. It means the Library of Congress now preserves every inch of that car inside and out through detailed 3D scans, high-resolution photography, and full documentation of its history. It's archived beside cultural landmarks like Rosa Parks' bus and the oldest surviving American automobile. That's how significant the Bullitt Mustang had become, not just as a car, but as a piece of American storytelling. What earned it that recognition wasn't the horsepower, or even the fame. It was its impact. The car changed how people saw Mustangs, how they saw muscle cars, how they saw movies. Before Bullitt car chases were staged and safe, after Bullitt, they became alive, raw, and dangerous. Generations grew up dreaming about that sound, that color, that impossible cool. The Mustang had become more than McQueen's car. It was America's. And now preserved forever in the Library of Congress, its legend will never fade, even when the roar of its engine is long gone. 5. Auction record breaker. When the Bullitt Mustang finally reappeared to the public in 2018, it was like seeing a ghost step out of history. And just 2 years later, in January 2020, it did something no Mustang and no movie car had ever done before. At a Mecum auction in Kissimmee, Florida, the hammer fell at $3.74 million. Let that sink in. A used 1968 Ford Mustang Fastback, once a working prop, became the most expensive Mustang ever sold. The bidding started modestly around $3,500, but within minutes, the numbers skyrocketed. At $2 million, the room went silent. By $3 million, collectors held their breath. And when the auctioneer's final call echoed, a piece of film history had shattered every record. The buyer stayed anonymous. But it didn't matter who owned it, the world understood what that car represented. It wasn't just steel and pistons. It was nostalgia rebellion, and cool distilled into a single machine. A car that turned a simple detective movie into a timeless myth. That sale didn't just make headlines, it redefined the value of movie cars forever. Because the Bullitt Mustang proved that sometimes a story told through sound movement and memory can be worth more than gold. 4. Sequential-VIN twins. Here's where the story becomes almost poetic. The two Bullitt Mustangs weren't just similar, they were born side by side. Their VIN numbers, 8R02S12558 and 8R02S125559, were sequential. That means they rolled off Ford's Medicine, New Jersey assembly line on the same day, built by the same hands, probably within minutes of each other. Think about that. Out of hundreds of thousands of Mustangs made in 1968, these two just happened to be twins. And somehow, both ended up in the same San Francisco dealership, sold together to Warner Brothers, destined to share one cinematic destiny. They lived parallel lives, the hero and the stunt, double the beauty and the beast. After filming, they were separated for 50 years, each taking a completely different path. But when both resurfaced decades later, one perfectly aged and one barely alive, those consecutive VIN numbers were what proved their authenticity beyond any doubt. It was fate written in steel. Two factory-born siblings created by chance, united by history, and immortalized by film. They weren't just cars anymore, they were twin relics of an era that changed forever. The way cinema captured motion, sound, and danger. 3. One coat repaint quirk. When filming ended, the hero Mustang, the one that survived the chase, looked tired. Its paint was dull chipped and scarred from months of hard shooting. But instead of restoring it completely, the studio made an unusual decision. They gave it one single coat of fresh Highland Green paint, quick, uneven, almost careless. It wasn't a full repaint. They didn't strip the old finish or fix the dents. They simply brushed a thin new layer over the wounds, leaving the history beneath intact. The rock chips, the scratches, the battle scars from every San Francisco jump. It was as if they were covering the car's pain without erasing it. Decades later, when experts examined the car, that decision turned out to be a gift. Beneath the surface, they found the original paint from 1968, still holding the dust and damage from the film. You could trace every chip to a specific scene, like reading the car's diary of survival. A full restoration would have erased all that evidence, but this quick, imperfect repaint preserved its soul. When the car was revealed to the world in 2018, it still wore that same single coat from half a century ago. Faded, weathered, perfectly authentic, a time capsule in green. DOI, correct manual transmission. For Bullitt, authenticity wasn't negotiable, not even in the smallest details. And that meant both Mustangs had to come equipped with one thing, a 4-speed manual transmission. No automatics, no shortcuts. Steve McQueen wanted every shift, every gear change, every engine scream to feel real. The Ford toploader 4-speed gearbox was as tough as they came, but even it had limits. During filming, the stunt car endured dozens of brutal launches and landings. Each jump slammed through the gears, grinding metal shredding clutches, pushing the transmission beyond race day abuse. Mechanics rebuilt it more than once between takes, because the chase couldn't wait. McQueen loved that manual setup because it gave him control. He could downshift hard into corners, let the rear tires chirp, keep the V8 howling in its power band. You could see it, his hands, his timing, the rhythm of the engine syncing perfectly with his expression. It wasn't acting. It was driving as performance art. If those cars had been automatics, Bullitt would have lost its heartbeat. The manual transmission made the chase human, full of imperfection, instinct, and risk. It turned a Hollywood scene into something that felt alive. One street sleeper philosophy. Here's the final, and maybe the most fascinating truth about the Bullitt Mustang. It was never meant to look special. Every design choice, every removed emblem, every muted detail followed one rule. Make it fast, but make it invisible. In 1968, muscle cars were all about flash hood scoops, racing stripes, bright colors, chrome everywhere. But Bullitt went in the opposite direction. No flash, no noise except for the engine. The Mustang's power was hidden under a detective's disguise, a philosophy car builders later called the street sleeper. It's the idea that the most powerful car in the lot doesn't need to shout. It just needs to wait for the right moment to show what it can do. That's what made McQueen's car so magnetic, its quiet confidence. It didn't demand attention. It commanded it the second it moved. And that mindset changed car culture forever. Generations of builders followed that blueprint, subtle exteriors hiding ferocious engines, stripped-down machines built for pure performance. The Bullitt Mustang wasn't loud. It wasn't polished. It wasn't even perfect. But it was real, and that authenticity made it immortal. Two identical cars, one shared soul, a legend that redefined what cool truly means: understated, unstoppable, unforgettable.